It was a little bit before I came to WAB, but like my first Rock in the Park, or I guess I should say fun fair. I remember like the huge fair and seeing so many kids being running around and seeing like the performances of high schoolers, because I was a middle schooler at the time. And I thought that was so awesome. I just couldn't believe that like the whole school could come together and like students could be running booths and like students could also be the ones performing. And I thought that really encompassed the community feeling of WAB.
I think when I think of WAB, the first thing that comes to mind is really supportive teachers and a really tight-knit community. I don't remember much from ECC, but I just remember everyone was really close and the teachers were really caring for every single student.
On the third day of my school, I had been kind of sitting alone in this one spot. These group of individuals came up to me very nicely, sort of introduced me into their friend group. I'd say I'd stayed with them for the past months now when it comes to lunch, kind of hangouts.
I think it was my second day on campus, and we had been in a lot of group meetings getting a lot of information. On the second day, Ms. Beasley and Mr. Crouch came up to me together with these big smiles on their face and said, "Oh, we heard so much about you already before you came." And that moment was just like in this big, exciting rush of newness and tiredness and jet lag and all these things. Just such a nice, simple thing for someone to say to welcome you. The littlest thing, but really memorable and personal, right?
Walking into the music room on the first day that I came to the factory and seeing Mr. Cowell on the desk playing guitar with all the kids around him singing.
When I first came, this is going back 17, 18 years, we had students come to WAB who were unhappy to be in China and just didn't really want to be at the school, but they very quickly found their place because people were so welcoming.
When I first came to WAB, I think crossing the bridge for the first time and seeing the enormous campus was inspiring, and it made me want to learn.
My mom, who teaches ISB, can admit that the WAB campus is like top notch and it's like better than most schools in Beijing.
Well, at the beginning you're like impressed by the building, how nice it is, how great everything seems. The class, like the green theater, looks, innovative. It's nice, but then you do realize that it's just classes.
It's interesting. It's a really busy, big school, even though it's also kind of a small, low population community feel. Getting inside the community, I realized how kind of intimate and close and small it is for all the things that are going on and how large the campus is as far as like the size of it. WAB feels intimate in a certain way because of a lot of the interpersonal relationships and the way that teachers and students approach each other on kind of this level playing field mentality, and a lot of student autonomy really actually does happen here, which is lovely.
Coming to China and coming to WAB was my first time in an international community, a true international community. So it was an interesting change from an all-boys school to a co-ed school, and a school that's steeped in tradition and stereotypical roles, to one that's more on the cutting edge, on the front line of making changes in the international education sector. So I've come to understand more what it means to learn and to better understand ways that you can learn from WAB.
我记得我第一次来京西的时候，给我印象比较深刻的是在我的课堂里面，他们对于我们课堂上讨论的问题的一些兴趣，还有他们所形成的一些观点，会让我觉得很惊讶。因为有的时候我会觉得一个9年级或者10年级的学生，他看待这个问题的方式是比我预想的是要全面和深刻一些。所以这些就让我觉得京西的孩子呢，他们的这种经历还有他们的这个思辨这一方面是让我比较印象深刻的。
At the IB school in Thailand, everyone wore uniforms. I guess coming to WAB, no uniforms was a change, and there was a lot more diversity in like clothing.
Having no uniform is kind of like the identity of WAB. It is much more free-flowing and like diverse because of the no uniform.
I like being able to wear my own clothes and not have to buy clothes from the school. You can see it in WAB. People dress very differently. I kind of dress like a middle-aged dad, but there are some people who have, very they get into the subculture type clothing.
I love it. This is my first non-dress code school abroad. I like to get to know, I feel like I get to know students much, much more by them being able to express themselves through their clothes. And as an adult and teacher, the same, we are treated in a way that prioritizes comfort in our job and our ability to do our job over wearing something in a performative manner. And if people like to dress a little more formally, that's their personal preference, but it's up to you. And I think that empowers students and teachers.
Would you like it if everybody dressed the same at Web? Like
No.
had a shirt and tie and trousers or something, or a skirt?
I think as a teacher, it kind of helps me understand who you are a little bit better, especially because you're high schoolers. I think you have more solidified identities, or maybe you're going through finding your identities and it expresses through your fashion.
WAB does a really good idea of trying to bring the Chinese culture and community into the school, but that doesn't necessarily build bridges towards our life and our daily life. So I feel like there are barriers here. I think the largest barrier is a language barrier. It's so challenging for a non-Chinese speaker to learn the language enough to meet people in public.
The Chinese that I've learned in class hasn't particularly been useful in that sort of setting. It's been much more academic and much less street talk.
I think we're detached because people like me have got away with not becoming fluent in Chinese, and I think that's wrong on my part.
Since I've been in Beijing, I haven't really had to learn much of the Chinese language.
But like I said, it kind of isolates. If you're not Chinese, you have to either work very, very hard to learn Chinese or just accept that you can't and then don't.
But as much as the school as an institution can facilitate us learning about the culture, once we go home in our daily lives, I think it's a challenge for us, and we have to kind of put extra effort in order to connect. And it doesn't, I would like a little more connection than I currently get, but life is busy.
Well, it's always easier to connect with people when you speak the native language.
I think WAB is always going to have the trouble international schools have, where WAB is a huge little bubble of money and privilege and all that stuff, and the second you walk outside the door, it's not like that in China.
In this bubble, you are protected from a lot of the harsher rules that are put in place in China to protect against a lot of things.
I feel like WAB's very much like a little bubble, especially since it's not actually in the city as well. It's kind of detached, like in both in location and also in feeling. I think it's nice to just honestly travel to the cities and also be able to like interact with different schools, not just international schools, like students who are actually in like public schools.
Even on China studies, you go to very touristy, very unrealistic, very WAB-friendly place.
The China Studies program at the school is really great for not just becoming trips, but for folding China culture and modern, exciting China in too.
我们会有每一年的 China Study Week， 其实就是在跟中国做一个更深的一个连接。
China Studies is great for kids who have come from a different country and have not yet experienced China for themselves. But as a Chinese person, I can tell that it's just a tour.
For example, on the Inner Mongolia trip, Inner Mongolia has a unique, like, it's related to China, but it has a unique and distinct and actual tangible history and experience. For some reason, we spent the first day at a water park and a theme park in the desert. And it was Inner Mongolia themed, but I wouldn't say it was the best representation of authentic Inner Mongolian culture or Chinese culture.
China studies trips are great fun for everyone, but learning-wise, I'm not sure that everyone learns a lot from a cultural standpoint, but it's just an experience there nonetheless.
I hear a lot of people like either say like, oh, like WAB is an art school or oh, it's a sports school, and I really think it's like a combination of both.
Socially, it's a lot different because we have a blend of like a bunch of different cultures from a lot of different, places and just people with very different experiences. And I feel like it's probably a more rich in experience that you're going to get other than just like a kind of like a monolithic American public school.
The campus here is so visually beautiful and so aesthetic. So it's hard to kind of describe to people what we have here. Like I explained to people, in the winter we have a frozen lake and people can play ice hockey and skate on it. It's not something that is easy to comprehend if you haven't seen or been here before.
I also think WAB is caring and inclusive, and they try their best, and they also respect others. They also respect the environment.
WAB is open. WAB is honest. WAB is diverse, WAB is caring, but above all, WAB is unique, and in itself, it's its own community, and it doesn't try and be anything else.